will regulated militia be necessary to the security of a free state? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Coming up on the program in mere moments, we're going to be talking with California Rifle and Pistol Association President Chuck Michel about an absolutely incredible and incredibly important decision handed down by a U.S. federal judge out in California on Thursday afternoon. This case, Rohde versus Becerra, deals with California's new law, well, new as of 2019, law requiring background checks on all ammunition sales in the state of California. The California Rifle and Pistol Association, U.S. Olympian Kim Rohde, and others had filed suit arguing that this ammunition background check law violated the Second Amendment rights of California residents. And on Thursday afternoon, U.S. District Judge Roger Benitez agreed, calling the requirement, quote, onerous and convoluted, adding that they violate citizens' Second Amendment rights, noting that the system that's been put in place has falsely denied thousands of Californians the ability to lawfully acquire firearms and ammunition, as well as putting barriers in place. California residents forbidden under state law to actually drive over the border into Arizona or Nevada, purchase ammunition there, and then bring it back into the state of California. We're also going to be talking this afternoon with Dave Adams from the Virginia Shooting Sports Association about yesterday's special session in Richmond, where two more gun control bills were approved. But right now, let's get our conversation started with Chuck Michel, president of the California Rifle and Pistol Association, talking about this major decision that blocks the implementation or the continued implementation of California's ammo background check law. Chuck, first of all, thanks so much for coming to the program, and congratulations. This is an absolutely historic win for gun owners in California.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cam. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. And for the, what is it now, 20 years we've been doing this?
Close to 20. I think we're up to like 16 now. Yeah.
Well, it's always a pleasure. And yeah, this is a historic win for California gun owners, for the right to keep and bear arms, for the Second Amendment, for all the plaintiffs that were in the case, for the NRA as a funder and supporter of the case. And really just, I mean, we are working very hard to turn the tide against the gun ban lobby and all the politicians who are doing everything they can to make it as expensive and impractical and hopefully impossible to choose to own a gun for sporters or to defend your family. That's what this is about. That's their agenda. They want to eliminate the gun culture as a political force, for starters, but also just as a cultural phenomenon. They do not want people to be able to choose to own a gun.
Not at all. And Judge Roger Benitez shutting down this ammo background check law, which was passed via referendum, part of the Gunmageddon referendum back in 2016. Did not take effect until 2019, but once it did, I mean, there are all kinds of just onerous restrictions on California residents. So you, as a California resident, were not legally allowed to leave the state, drive over into Arizona, for example, purchase ammunition, and then bring it back into California. You weren't able to have ammunition shipped to your home, which I know that plaintiff Kim Rohde, that was one of the reasons why she got involved in this lawsuit as an Olympic shooter. She goes through a lot of ammunition, and yet every time she wanted to get more, she had to have it shipped to her local FFL. She had to go through a background check to receive it, because that was the requirement, right? You either had to pay $1 if you were part of this database and you had your ID card. You had to pay more money. And in addition to all of this, I mean, this cumbersome system that was set up resulted in denials of tens of thousands of Californians who were legally eligible to purchase ammunition, but the state screwed up and said, no, you can't buy ammo. And in this 120-page decision, I mean, Judge Benitez just ripped the state for trying to put this law in place.
Yeah, I mean, Kim Rohde, God bless her, she's my hero, and the lead plaintiff in this case, and the gold medal Olympian we all should know and love. She typifies, obviously, she uses a lot more ammunition than most shooters. But it typifies the obstacles that people had. I mean, it was very, very hard to get ammunition. Ranges had a hard time managing it. And individual shooters, the state databases that they have to cross-reference to see if you're prohibited from owning firearms have very, very high error rates. Those databases are not accurate. And so the false negatives, so to speak, the false denials were just chasing a lot of people away. And by that, I mean, they would give up. And that's what the politicians that push this wanted. They want to make it so impractical and so difficult, so time-consuming, and so exhausting to try and get to the point where you're approved in the database that people give up. That was part of the plan, to chase people out of the sports and away from making the decision to own the most effective tool there is to defend your family, which is fire.
One of the things that Judge Benitez talked about in his decision was describing, the process by which California residents can buy ammunition. He talked about the main door, basically 4 doors that you could go through to get an ammunition purchase in California. And then he talked about all of the problems in going through each of these 4 doors, including the databases that you mentioned. But he also said that, in essence, the state of California set up a system that you were required to prove your innocence, before you could purchase a firearm. You're basically presumed to be a prohibited person unless you could prove otherwise. And if you couldn't prove otherwise, then you couldn't legally acquire ammunition. He said no other constitutional right is treated this way.
That's right. And that's been going on for years out here. We've been fighting the DOJ over that for a long time because we've had problems in the past with people trying to buy firearms before this ammo background check law was even passed, where the criminal background record, the criminal record system database in California is a mess. And so there's all kinds of people who are not prohibited from owning firearms, but the database is incomplete, not necessarily demonstrating that they aren't eligible, incomplete. And so rather than allow those people to buy firearms, or what should happen, the DOJ should take the laboring oar and have to go out and figure out if those people are or are not prohibited. They were making people prove that they're not prohibited, which is sometimes impossible to do because the physical court records are gone. But that's the approach that California bureaucrats have been taking for a long time, to shift the burden to the folks who want to exercise their right to prove they're able to. And that's called a privilege, not a right.
Absolutely. This, as I mentioned, this opinion is 120 pages. I mean, it is exhaustive, and I assume part of that is simply Judge Benitez's discretion. But given the fact that he is saying, listen, this California law is not going to be enforced, it's pretty clear that the judge wanted to have all of his I's dotted and his T's crossed, and he lays out an exhaustive case as to why this law cannot remain in effect, why it needs to, as this case continues to be litigated, why the pause button needs to be hit on this. Tell me, can you go through maybe some of your, I don't want to say favorite parts, but some of the most important components of this opinion? Well,
first of all, it's a 120-page work of constitutional art. Most summed up very nicely right in the first page. But what Judge Benitez was doing is making sure that he made a record, because he knows this case will be appealed and quite likely all the way to the Supreme Court. But the next step is the Ninth Circuit, and he knew he had to create a factual record, which is why he took his time. I mean, typically a preliminary injunction is granted within the first 30 or so days that a case is filed. We're 7 months in or more, I think. So he gave the DOJ every opportunity to present evidence and try and justify this law, and they tried again and again and again, and just couldn't meet their burden. When people are being chased out of the right, this is like an abortion debate where they try and make it impossible to get an abortion, and so rather than exercising that right, whatever you feel about abortion, the analysis as an analogy is apropos. the the governments that don't like certain rights do things to try and chill your ability to exercise those rights. And that's what he needed to show that this was doing, that it was having that impact on folks. And so he had to go through all the factual evidence. Remember, at the trial court level, that's what the courts are supposed to do. They evaluate, they determine what the facts are. And theoretically, at least, when it goes up to the 3-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit, those facts are established. So he had to take his time and make a very, very thorough case that he had been objective about this, that he had looked at the facts, that he had studied the evidence, that he had given the DOJ every opportunity to meet its burden, and they couldn't do it. And so that's what that 120-page work of art shows, that he took his time, he did it right, and it should withstand an appeal.
Yeah, you talk about doing the math in order to show that chilling effect. He talked about 101,047 residents who are not prohibited persons but still failed a background check. He said beyond those folks, an untold number of ammunition purchasers were turned away or deterred and did not even start a background check. How many gave up, he wonders. If it's any indication, early on at 2 California stores, approximately 1/2 of the potential ammunition customers were turned away without a background check. That's from the declaration of Travis Morgan, who's the general manager of Guns, Fishing, and Other Stuff in Vacaville, California. Judge Benitez went on to say it's undoubtedly telling that before the background check system went into effect, the state estimated the number of ammunition purchases that would be made in 1 year. And he says the implications are astounding. Cal DOJ noted that there are currently 4.5 million people with distinct entries in the automated firearms system. The state estimated that roughly 3 million of those persons would purchase ammunition approximately 4 to 5 times each year. So they estimated about 13 million ammunition transactions with standard background checks every year. Judge Benitez says in reality, though, there have been far, far less. In the 7 months since July 1st, 2019, there have been only 635,856 standard and basic checks. And he wonders, what happened to the other 12 million projected ammunition transactions? He said it could be that the state was just way off in their projections, which he says is not comforting when it comes to the state's predictive judgment. He says another explanation could be that the background check laws are having incredibly chilling effects on law-abiding gun owners. Another explanation could be that the onerous and inescapable burden that these background checks impose are forcing purchasers to find alternative, possibly illicit sources. I thought that was really, really fascinating that the state of California had estimated, we're going to have 13 million of these background checks done for ammunition sales every year. It's been a fraction of that. And the judge, I think, is right to wonder, okay, so what does that tell us? It certainly, the best case scenario for the Cal DOJ is that they have no idea what they're doing in terms of, predicting the number of background checks that'll be performed. But again, that's the best case scenario, is that they're ignorant of this stuff. The worst case scenario is that, and I think the most likely scenario is that the laws that they're putting in place are having a far bigger chilling effect on legal gun owners than on violent criminals in the state.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind, like the folks that are listening to this show right now are probably much more engaged than the average citizen when it comes to understanding gun rights and all the hoops you have to jump through to buy a firearm or previously ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, all the new gun buyers that are out suddenly realizing that they may want to choose to be prepared in case people who are going stir crazy from being cooped up this long and starting to run out of resources start to take to the streets. They're planning for the worst. We're all hoping for the best, but those folks are shocked when they go in to buy a gun and find out what it takes to actually do the paperwork and wait and pay the fees that you have to pay to buy a firearm. Most people don't understand it, and once they get into a gun store and try, or even just hear how hard it is to do, they just say, well, it's not worth the trouble. And so that's what's happening, I think, with most of these folks who are interested but not as involved in the shooting sports as maybe your listeners are. So those people just throw up their hands and give up. And that was, again, that's part of the plan, that they want people to walk away. Or they go to a neighboring state and buy ammunition there and drive back into California with it, at the risk of being arrested, by the way, because the Cal DOJ and other law enforcement agencies are at all the gun shows in the neighboring states looking for California plates and following those cars back across state lines if they think they bought ammunition or magazines or whatever. So, but a lot of people may be choosing to do that, and that's not something we as a government want to encourage either. It's not like those people are bad people, and so we want to just try and dig them all out and prosecute them. The fact is that a government mandate is forcing people to make unfortunate decisions if they want to be able to, and potentially problematic decisions if they want to exercise their rights. That's not something that you blame the people for. That's something that you look closely at a government mandate and decide whether it's turning people into scofflaws. It's like prohibition. People drank even though alcohol was illegal. That wasn't those people's fault. That was an overreaching government law that caused people who don't respect that law, because of all the legitimate reasons to not respect it, to take an alternate course of action.
Absolutely. I mean, I think back to the folks in Needles, California, right there on the California-Arizona border, prohibited by law from driving across the border into Arizona to purchase ammunition. There are no gun stores in Needles. Instead, they are forced to drive 140 miles each way in order to get to the nearest gun store to stay within the confines of California law. I mean, that's absolutely absurd. One of the things that Judge Benitez, again, this case was specifically dealing with the ammunition background check law, but there was an interesting piece in Judge Benitez's opinion. It'd be great if he was Governor Benitez. He said, quote, "In California, the state has enacted incrementally a burdensome web of restrictions on the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding responsible gun owners. The ammunition background check system and anti-importation laws add even more complexity, and there are more laws on the way. While this motion has been pending, the governor signed a raft of new, quote, gun violence prevention laws into existence, including a firearm precursor part background check. California already has a universal background check, he says, for firearms, a quote unquote assault weapons ban, a ban on magazines holding more than 10 rounds, a gun registry, firearm confiscation orders, a minimum gun purchase age of 21 years, a limit of one firearm purchase per month, a requirement that would-be gun buyers first earn a safety certificate, a 10-day waiting period on gun purchases, even for persons who already own a firearm, a ban on campus carry for self-defense, a ban on K through 12 teachers being armed for self-defense, a ban on open carrying a firearm, a highly restrictive concealed carry law, and a moribund roster of handguns permitted for retail sale, among others. With its newest overarching and sweeping background check system, the state completely chokes off many law-abiding responsible gun owners while burdening all citizens who want to buy ammunition." Judge Benitez says, quote, "Another pesky loophole closed." Again, I know this case was specifically dealing with the ammo background checks, but Chuck, when you see Judge Benitez lay out again that litany of gun control laws that are also chilling the Second Amendment exercise on the part of California residents, what was your reaction?
It was a thing of beauty. I wish he had put in the footnote cited to my book. Because my book is 600 pages long. The California gun laws book is 600 pages long. That's what it takes to really understand what to get about 90% of the way to understanding all the laws that apply on firearms in California. That Byzantine regulatory scheme is not the type of thing. I mean, that's worse than environmental laws, even tax laws. And gun owners don't have, a regulatory compliance lawyer standing in their closet to help them figure out the gun laws, like a corporation has a tax lawyer or an environmental lawyer to help them figure out their regulatory obligations. That's how confusing it is. And that's part of the plan, too. They want to scare people away, to make it as difficult or impossible. So ban gun stores, ban gun shows, ban gun ranges, make it impossible to exercise your right to participate in the joy of shooting sports and to make that decision to possess a firearm to defend yourself or your family by just red taping the right to death. That's the plan. And thankfully, Judge Benitez saw through it. And probably some of that has to do with his unique perspective. His family came out of Cuba during some of the revolution down there, and they saw the evolution of a tyrannical government. I think he's seen tyranny up close and personal or at least his family has, and he knows how this kind of incremental governmental intrusion, couched in all kinds of benign terms like public safety and save the children and protect yourself and feel safe, all those buzzwords designed to they're the pablum to the people to make them swallow the infringements without recognizing what they're giving up. He sees through that. Some judges do, unfortunately, not nearly as many as we'd like, although there is hope, interestingly enough, in the Ninth Circuit that the numbers have changed, that the appellate court is now more like 50-50, conservative versus liberal. It's not quite as simple as Republican versus Democrat in terms of their philosophies. But
right.
Thanks to the Trump administration, there are a number of new appointees to the Ninth Circuit. And when you get a 3-judge panel, which is the first step, you have a much better chance of getting some folks that are more sympathetic than we used to. So we're hopeful. We don't know what the DOJ will do or when it will do it. I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of a motion to stay this order filed today, whether it's filed in the trial court first and then in the Ninth Circuit, or maybe in the Ninth Circuit right out of the blocks, or maybe in both. I mean, we don't know what they're doing yet, but obviously they've been powwowing since last night, trying to figure out what to do. And they're not going to like this, and they're going to try and put a stop to it. Although I noticed that folks immediately, this is Freedom Week too. Folks immediately after the magazine possession ban was struck down and the purchase ban was struck down, for a week, we had a window where folks bought 1 million magazines that could hold over 10 rounds. Obviously, there was a great deal of pent-up demand.
Yeah.
Well, now that the ammo law is at least on hold, if not permanently struck down, folks are flooding online vendors and stores to stock up and buy ammunition without the red tape and without subjecting themselves to the database errors that blocked them before. So, this is another week or so, we'll see how long it lasts, of freedom from, and by the way, I hope it's permanent. We will be fighting to make it permanent, obviously. But
yes.
There's a window here at least that crashed several ammunition supplier websites because so many Californians got on them last night to try and buy ammo. So as of right now, this law is stayed, right? I mean, this is not in effect. California residents can legally go online and they can purchase ammunition at this moment in time. They could drive. If you live in Needles, you can now drive over into the state of Arizona. You can purchase ammunition. You can bring it back. That's the status of this law at this moment. For the moment, yes, you can order online. Ammo Depot is one of our co-plaintiffs in this case. Abel's Ammo, those types of vendors are those suppliers are selling direct to California while they can, and that's a beautiful thing.
That is a beautiful thing, and as you say, we will watch very closely to see what the state does. Judge Benitez, for those who are not aware, was also the judge that struck down California's ban on the possession of magazines over 10 rounds. Actually, struck down the 10-round magazine limit and stayed that law. As you talk about, it was Freedom Week. After a week, he said, "Okay, we're gonna keep the ban on the possession. We're gonna keep the injunction." On the ban of 10-round magazines in place. So if you have a magazine that you bought back when it was legal, you can still possess it. But we'll go ahead and keep that law in place right now as it's being litigated. So you after Freedom Week was over, you could not purchase a magazine over 10 rounds. Where is the status of that particular case, Chuck? As long as we're talking about Judge Benitez and his decisions, where are we with the magazine ban lawsuit?
The Ninth Circuit just heard oral argument, and what you had there was one law that Prop 63 and put in place that banned the possession of a magazine that held over 10 rounds, and another law that had been enacted 20 years ago or so that banned the importation or purchase of magazines that hold over 10 rounds. But folks who had them were grandfathered in. So as we feared when that was first passed, they said, "Oh, well, we're going to let everybody who has them keep them." As soon as they get the chance, they take away that grandfathering and they want to dispossess the people who had those lawful magazines by passing a law banning not just importation, but also possession. So for a week, Judge Benitez enjoined the enforcement of both the possession and the importation. And so 1 million were imported. And now the importation ban is back in place for the time being, but the possession ban is not. You can still possess. So that case was just argued in front of a 3-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit. And folks can go on the Ninth Circuit's website and listen to that oral argument. It was very, very interesting. And this is where, we had a Trump appointee and some other conservatively inclined justices on that 3-judge panel. And there is a very, very good chance that we are going to prevail in that case, and both the possession and the importation ban on magazines that hold over 10 rounds will be struck down, because Judge Benitez recognized that those types of magazines have a great deal of value as self-defense tools, and so are protected by the Second Amendment. And so we're very, very hopeful that the Ninth Circuit will uphold that case, just as we're hopeful that the Ninth Circuit will also respect Judge Benitez's opinion in the ammo background check law ruling.
Well, again, it is a fantastic ruling. Congratulations once again. Thank you on behalf of gun owners around the country, because the fights that y'all are fighting there in California are, listen, they're going to be coming to a state near you, no matter where you live. I mean, here in Virginia, I can tell you for sure that anti-gun lawmakers are looking to see what Governor Newsom is signing into law, and they're trying to do the same, trying to get these same types of bills to Governor Ralph Northam's desk. So this is an incredibly important victory, not just for California gun owners, but for gun owners across the United States. And Chuck, I hope that we can talk again soon when there are updates. I'd love to have you back on, and I do thank you for your time today.
Matt, Cam, let me give a couple of shout outs here. I want to thank CRPA, one of the lead plaintiffs in the case, obviously Kim Rohde. There were a number of other individuals who may or may not want to be publicly acknowledged, but they all stepped up and agreed to volunteer to be plaintiffs in the case. Also Ammo Depot, Abel's Ammo. I want to make sure I try not to forget anybody.
This is like the Second Amendment Oscars. Go for it. I said, this is like the Second Amendment Oscars, where you're giving your speech. Go for it.
Sam's Shooters Emporium. Yeah, and everybody who supported this case, including, of course, the National Rifle Association. They were very instrumental in helping to make this case possible. And then my legal team, Sean Brady and Anna Brever and Clint Montfort and Matt Cubero. I just got such a great team of lawyers who believe in the Second Amendment and are fighting every day, 24/7, to get rulings like this. And it hasn't been easy, and we've been at it for a long time. And hopefully, with the Supreme Court considering the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus the City of New York case, we're about to experience a Second Amendment renaissance, and my team can really go to work on a number of laws. I want to get that 600-page California gun laws book down to about a dozen.
Wouldn't that be great if you could turn it from a book to a pamphlet? Yes.
And last but not least, a little hat tip to the city of Needles, California. They are the recipient of the CRPA's Fierce About Freedom Award, because they were the first Second Amendment sanctuary city to pass a resolution supporting the Second Amendment in the state of California. And I know that they're all celebrating today that they can just drive across the state border to get their ammunition and not have to go 140 miles inland to try and exercise their Second Amendment rights.
Absolutely. A little bit of common sense out of California. Who would have believed it? Chuck Michel, president of the California Rifle and Pistol Association. Thank you, as always, and look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks, Cam. Look forward to it.
Good stuff there by Chuck Michel. Looking forward to talking with him again in the very near future. Now let's turn our attention to a conversation with Dave Adams from the Virginia Shooting Sports Association. We're going to have Dave, by the way, back on the program on Monday, talking about that Rand Corporation study into all kinds of gun control laws, and they say, it's time to get rid of stand your ground and things of that nature. We're going to get into a deeper dive on that on Monday's Cam and Company, but Dave did join us today talking a little bit about the special session in Richmond, Virginia on Thursday, in which two more bills were approved. One of them, I think, going to be a bigger deal for some gun owners in the state of Virginia than another. But take a look and a listen to our conversation with Dave Adams. Dave Adams with the Virginia Shooting Sports Association. Thank you so much for coming on the program again, sir.
Thanks for having me back, Cam.
Absolutely. Saw sort of a unique session in Virginia yesterday, one-day special session dealing with all kinds of bills that the governor had wanted amended, including a couple of gun bills. The one that I think is going to be of most interest to gun owners in the Commonwealth, dealing with undoing firearms preemption. What was the governor not satisfied with in terms of the bill that passed, and what does the amended bill look like now, Dave?
So it was really minor, and I'm not really sure why the governor didn't like the way it came out of the legislature. Tommy Norment, when both those bills were going through, made sure that institutions that had Corps cadets or had rifle programs of some type, shooting programs, that they were exempt from any of those types of changes. And both houses approved his amendment to the bill when they went through. And the Governor Northam just kind of tightened it up a little bit more. But in the end, it really didn't do a whole lot. So both of the governor's amendments were approved, and they came out, and he'll be signing the bills now, and they'll become effective on July the 1st.
All right. Well, we knew that was coming, and at some point in the near future, we need to talk with you about potential litigation on or around July the 1st when these bills become law. But in the meantime, what is your advice to Virginia gun owners right now, having seen these gun control bills become law, having seen the first new gun control laws passed in the Commonwealth in over 20 years, and frankly, having seen this anti-gun agenda on full display? These bills were not as bad as they started out in many cases, but we know that these same lawmakers are coming back. Governor Northam has made it clear he still wants his gun ban. He still wants his magazine ban. So what do gun owners in Virginia need to know right now?
Well, gun owners need to know, they need to vote, that elections matter, and that all candidates are not the same, and that their votes do make a difference. We saw 4 years ago or 2 years ago, where one election was decided by coin flip, and that they can't be too busy to do anything other than vote on election day. And that these people are seriously pushing gun control, and one session is not the end goal for these folks. They're coming back for more. So they need to be active. If they're not registered to vote, register to vote, and then get out and vote on election day.
Things, by the way, will probably be fairly quiet in Virginia over the next couple of months, but as we get closer to that July 1st effective date for some of these new gun control laws, I expect things are going to start heating up, both in terms of litigation and then in terms of enforcement. We will, I think, see a revival of the Second Amendment sanctuary debate in the state of Virginia as we get closer to that July 1st effective date. Right now, let's turn our attention to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, as well as today's recidivist report. We will start there with a story out of Kingsport, Tennessee, where a murder suspect, this is very similar, I think, to yesterday's recidivist report. Different story. Similar circumstances. Murder suspect on pretrial release from the Sullivan County Jail there in northeast Tennessee. This comes from WJHL. Says the suspect in a fatal shooting at a Kingsport convenience store was on pretrial release from the Sullivan County Jail at the time of the shooting. 26-year-old Brandon Castle, charged with second-degree murder after police say he shot and killed another man outside of a Zoomer's gas station. Police say that Castle was arrested the next day while attempting to sell illegal drugs to undercover officers at a car wash. How about that? And he was released from the county jail on March 9th as part of the pretrial release program. He was booked into the jail on March the 1st on a failure to appear charge that he received back in December for driving on a suspended or revoked license, expired license plates, and possession of drug paraphernalia. According to WJHL, the pretrial release program is for nonviolent offenders who are unable to post bond. They say had Castle posted his bond, he would have been released anyway, according to the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff's Office spokesman Lieutenant Andy Siebold told WJHL his charges and criminal history were reviewed, as are all pretrial release candidates. The review of his charges and criminal history placed him as eligible for the pretrial release program. Due to the fact that his charges were nonviolent, his release was approved at a minimum level of supervision, and he was released from the Sullivan County Jail. The Sullivan County Sheriff, Jeff Cassidy, came up with the pretrial release program as a way to alleviate overcrowding in the county jail. Back in November, the county commission approved funding for the program. But one wonders what will happen to the program now that one of the pretrial released suspects is back behind bars on murder charges. Our armed citizen story of the day from the Lone Star State of Texas. That the scene in Wichita County where a escapee from the North Texas State Hospital ended up getting shot by a homeowner. All went down on Wednesday night, around 9:30 in the evening. Sheriff David Duke, sheriff in Wichita County, says that 25-year-old Matthew Reyes was in the North Texas State Hospital, noticed a janitor lay some keys down on a table, then grabbed the keys, found the one that opened the door, and escaped from the facility. Shortly afterwards, the sheriff says that a woman in Wichita Falls, Texas, noticed a guy swimming in her pool in his underwear. Yeah, she called 911. That's when Reyes noticed her looking at him out the back window. He tried to get into the home. Sheriff says by that time, the woman's husband had arrived home, had grabbed a shotgun. The 42-year-old homeowner said he confronted Reyes, who at first got on the ground, then got up and charged the man. That's when that homeowner fired a shot. Taken to a local hospital. He was shot in the right leg. Medical personnel said they found the janitor's keys, quote, inserted into Reyes's body. When x-raying for pellets, he was flown to hospital in Fort Worth where he's undergoing surgeries. He was court-ordered to the North Texas State Hospital from Denton County, and the sheriff says he will return there once he gets out of the hospital there in Fort Worth, although he could be facing some criminal charges now as well. And finally, our good deed of the day. So I've got to say thank you to William, who let me know about this story from New York State, where a 91-year-old woman got a little birthday treat. You can see there, this is a video taken from outside of the nursing home. You might be able to see the reflection of a police car through the window. That is Miss Adele Ambrose, just celebrated her 41st birthday. No, she looks great for 91, but she looks a little bit older for 91st birthday for Adele Ambrose there in New York State. And first responders honored her with a parade outside of her nursing home. New York State Police noting it is always special when we can say thank you back. For 40 years, Miss Adele Ambrose cooked Thanksgiving dinner for troopers at the Hampton Bays Riverhead Barracks. She just celebrated her 91st birthday. We were proud to be part of her parade after all that she has done for us. So there you go. Adele Ambrose and all of the folks there who helped make her birthday special. We thank you for your very, very good deeds. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program as always. Hope you have a great weekend as well. We'll be back on Monday with more of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all around the nation. In the meantime, don't forget to check out bearingarms.com, the website, over the course of the weekend. And don't forget as well, you can become a VIP member of Bearing Arms, VIP Gold member of Town Hall Media there at the website as well. Support the Second Amendment journalism we do each and every day. The great guests that we bring you, like Chuck Michel, president of the California Rifle and Pistol Association. Certainly do appreciate your support. Until we talk again, be safe, be well, and be free. And we'll see you soon with another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company.